Hi everybody! My name's Ice Valkyrie. Welcome to Rage Topics, and our subject matter today is drum roll again, guys. From those. Okay, you can stop drum roll.
My mouse was flipping the crap out there.
Okay. Okay, and today we have new people actually joining us today. So how about we start off with Andrew.
Hey, I'm Andrew. What do you want to hear from me? I mean, I have a podcast that I host, Geeking Out at the Tower podcast. I play video games, mostly, your Pokemons and your RPGs, but yeah. What more do you want?
That's cute.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Fox, but for the sake of this discussion, I shall go by the name of Fox. My trick of the trade is a cosplay photographer. I've been at it for about a year and a half. I've been doing photography for a lot longer than that. I'm an avid video gamer, love technology. I'm a big car nut, and the sky's blue.
Cool. And then welcoming back, we have Bert.
Or more specifically, yeah. So my name's Bert. I've been here before. You've heard me try and be the voice of reason. To this topic in particular, I bring the fact that I love video games. So much video games. I don't just have, this sitting right by me. And on top of my boring day job, I'm also in many ways a craftsman, and as of shortly, an aspiring blacksmith, actually.
Yay! And now, yeah, Peter.
What up, bitches?
You joined us last time for our cosplay.
Costumes, right? This is what, like, +5 to my face?
I love that mask, actually. Anything Darksiders is good enough for me.
Yeah, the only problem is it's not really a mask, it's more of a stand.
Oh, that's... Okay, you didn't need to tell us that.
That's okay. It can be modified. I'll get the drill.
It's like one of those masquerade masks. You just, like, wear it over your face. Hello.
Alright, so starting this topic up, it's basically an open floor discussion, so if anybody wants to start talking to get something off their chest, now is the time.
Boob physics.
Wow.
Let's just get that one right out of the way.
Yeah, that's something I brought before we went live.
All right.
Yeah, we essentially talked about this. There is essentially, in most video games, most anime, there is no such thing as bus support.
I would sort of something say like most anime. No, okay. In video games, I would say it's about half and half in terms of like bus supports. In terms of how they're like animated, it's about half and half. Then we have maybe another 10-20% that the outfit should not be able to support them as nicely as they do, because animation just doesn't work that way. And then yes, in anime, it's famed for it. So short of like
Popping out everywhere.
it's a small subset that actually tries to design clothing that
I
works.
totally agree with you, because there's certain games that portray it well, like they get the whole physics down to what it's supposed to be in real life, and then there's like the most crazy spontaneous that people don't really...
Dead or Alive?
It would never
Dead or
exist in
Alive?
real life.
Dead or Alive?
Well,
Dead or Alive,
I see-
Volleyball Extreme.
Oh, God.
I see
Oh,
this
yeah.
all the time in Team Ninja games, whether it be Ninja Gaiden or Dead or Alive Extreme.
Oh yeah,
Where
they particularly good.
even the most slightest like body movement from like here to here, and the moves are like that.
They
and
don't understand like the
Like,
concept
there's
of
no gravity.
inertia.
Goes everywhere.
It's like, so I'm gonna turn to the left like 3 centimeters, and my tits will go 10 inches to the left, and then 10 inches to the right, and then up and down and everywhere.
That's pretty much like Soul Calibur.
Soul Calibur is not as bad.
No, it's not as bad as.
But that is only a slight consolation, because that's like saying, oh, getting hit by a car is not as bad as getting hit by a semi-truck. It's not as bad, but
You know what annoys me the most about boobs in video games?
Hmm?
boob chest plates. Now, Bert, I'm pretty sure you can speak more about this. But
You
aren't
did not
those
bring up the.
essentially
You
more
did not bring up the
dangerous?
subject.
Okay, let me even throw another monkey wrench into this.
Okay.
Different types of materials. Steel, leather, chainmail.
Ooh, chainmail.
So many designers have clearly never worn chainmail in their life and have never realized that you so do not want to have bare chainmail on your body. It's not the most pleasant.
Like this.
Especially not with hair like that. And I've seen people who have hit it off, who have actually worn bare chainmail on their body, and as long as you're lucky, not a single hair catches is like great. But to get to the topic, because you brought up boob plate, that was your mistake. Oh my God, man! What is who in the right mind thought it was a good idea, to separate breast into cups? It doesn't even seem like it'd be comfortable. I can't talk specifically to that because I'm not a woman and I don't have breasts.
So you're suggesting that that a design of a breastplate should be like a uni boob?
Yeah, it should. And for people who actually use these things, and I'm talking about in the past and in the current time, it's a uniform. It does have sometimes some definition. I mean, sometimes, because unless you have a really large.
It's more unisex armor design, shouldn't it be?
It's basically unisex.
I don't know about that, because if it's a male-oriented armor, you're definitely not going to get that sort of shaping, so that it's going to pretty much push your boobs back against your chest. So
that's why it's pretty much unisex. Because the thing is, it has to compensate for the size of the breast. If it's someone with a very large chest, you have to, of course, take that into account and make some space. But you don't do that by making two little cups that they can sit in. You basically make a sort of indentation, and you have it come out very far from the top and then drop down. Which there are actually a lot of, I guess you could call male breastplates, but just in general historical breastplates that have a very high sternum, because you wanted those blows to be deviated towards the bottom as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that would make sense for one. You just have a far sternum so that there's space, so you're not getting with your chest plate.
Yeah.
You want them to go towards the bottom and to the sides.
Because the way the cup designs are in most video games, from what I remember hearing, and Bert, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that if they take the pressure like that, then this part here will dig into your chest.
Well, yeah, basically, it's because you have the two cups that are supporting the breast, supporting, and you have this basically, and sometimes it's very, very jagged. You don't even have a flat. You have this jagged sort of indentation in the middle. So you go that's fine and dandy if you're just walking around, but the moment someone digs you, it's just gonna basically right into your chest. And hell, it's probably gonna make a worse wound than
It will. It definitely will.
At that point in the cleavage there, you would expect that would be an easy target to hit. Let's say with with a spear or a sword, and maybe the metal would be thinner at that point.
If we're talking about construction design, the fact that it's a V, basically an inward V, also is not great for having a decent amount of steel, because you have a fold there, so you're going to have a slight weakness by its nature.
Well, I can see where he's going with this, though, because you're already having an issue with it if it's already got that indentation. But if it is hit on that point, you're basically killing yourself.
Yes. Not to mention, to add to that, any blow, not even dead center, anything glancing on the inside. If we imagine, let's say a sword comes down straight this way. If it catches on one of the cups, it's going to deviate right to the center. So you're literally giving yourself a big weak point and making it easier to hit that exact spot. Which is why, as I said, usually the sternum area, there was a wide indentation that came out, and then it came to an even wider point there because you wanted it to deviate towards the sides, away from the middle.
Yeah.
The middle is bad.
Never mind just about the cups and stuff. I'm just striding away from this, but the fact that most female armor is cut off right on the underboob.
which is BS.
There's no coverage.
Yeah, it's BS as well. Like
It's like you're protected, and then hello, belly.
yeah, because the reality is those chest plates usually where they do end is basically at the navel, at the belly button.
Yeah.
Because that's where your body flexes. So you want flexibility, but that's like 4, 5, 6 inches more of steel that like these breastplates don't have. It's really astoundingly bad.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Because I actually was starting to work on one recently for a magic costume. Because the character Chandra, she has that type of armor, but it like that's it. It just cuts off like at that section, and I'm like, okay, so what else is protecting you aside from the chainmail that you're going to be wearing on top of that? There's no protection at all.
Well, you could debate, if I'm playing devil's advocate, that if there is chainmail coming down from there, it serves the purpose of protecting. But at the same time, at that point, I'd be like, why leave it so high? Just bring it a little bit more down, and it'll protect all the vitals. Because up there, it's really protecting the heart and the top of the lungs. You can still catch a lung right beneath.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, if you have a spear or whatever like that, you can just pretty much shove it through, like, the rib cage, because your rib cage is, like...
No. What you could do is that maybe have well, there's also, let's say, the spear coming up, let's say that's your belly, and it's coming up from, like, right underneath, and you're getting through that way.
You guys are even going more complicated. You don't even need to get as crazy as spear. A knife. You get a knife. You get literally like a classic stiletto, a narrow knife, made for going right between chainmail or like right through most other armors. And if it's right up here against, it's just right underneath. And you're like, well,
let's go to the root cause of why these armors are designed this way. Quite frankly, visual appeal and a visual medium. These armors are not supposed to make sense. They're supposed to look sexy.
I've seen armors in RPGs where it's nothing more than a bikini with dental floss and postage stamps, and it has an insanely high defense rate.
Yeah,
like
that's the classic trope.
For a visual medium, these armors are supposed to make sense.
Yeah, but at the same time, I've seen plenty of armors that make sense and that look good. History is full of armors that look gorgeous and make sense. And, like, I can totally understand. Again, I'm a devil's advocate and say, like, yeah, you want to emphasize tits. You want to see tits. That's great. But get out of that. Like, it's the silliest, most immature mindset. Like, make her a nice, proper armor. I don't know about you guys, but that's sexy to me.
Well, that's always good. A nice, proper armor is always good. But the fact of the matter is people want to sell on that. They want to sell on the boobs. They want to sell on the cleavage. You call it immature, but it is something that does sell, that does appeal to some masses.
Yeah.
We're all guilty of that sometimes. Who doesn't like a little bit of fan service?
Oh, yeah. No, that's why I have to play devil's advocate. Like, I can't say I can't enjoy it. It's, But yeah. Go ahead, Peter. I was cutting you off, yeah?
To be fair, like you're gonna always have your games like Dead or Alive where it's over the top, and then you're always gonna have your other games where they actually take the time and thought like, how would a female armor actually look? So you're always gonna have the two.
Mm-hmm.
One's not gonna make sense at all, but it's still fun to watch.
The problem I find is that category 1, it doesn't make sense, let's make them look nice boobs, is like, or at least until very recently, was 90% of them. I'd be fine if it was about half and half, but it's not remotely half and half. It's really dominated by these like desires to be really bad armor designs.
I find it very surprising how there is a lot of I was gonna say sexism, but there's a lot of this, sex sells in video gaming, and it's dominated towards a more male audience. But the statistics, as I recently seen, that the majority of gamers out there are women. Whether it be...
It's a small majority now, yeah, but it's sitting at, what was it, like 60%, I think I lost? 60?
Something like that, but that's like more towards like the mobile gaming,
No. let's be frank. Let's not start subdividing, because
No.
subdivided we fall. Let's be frank. Gamers, people who play
Okay,
video
they
games.
are gamers across the rainbow.
Okay, like we have to be clear. Gamers. So there you go. We have a gray area, and the reality is, if we take them as gamers, like, and here, this is perhaps a broad concept that I'm gonna throw right back there. If we take them as gamers, they might be the people who will enjoy, let's say, if you will, hardcore games afterwards. They come in through the casual, and then they hit other things because they're always interested in more. Anyways, I've diverted off the point enough. Valkyrie, how do you want us to throw back up to
I
this?
actually want to hear from Andrew if he can give
If he
his.
can decide whether he wants to have a camera
Right.
or a Frigimon.
Well, I didn't want you all to see me eating. It would have looked pretty awesome, but still, I had to spare you from that. As far as actual armor designs, I have like no clue about that. But to throw this to a conversation, that this is mostly for my friend Kevin, and I'm just gonna let him know this out there. The whole fact that you can learn abilities and skills from putting on clothing, articles, in general. So like FF9, one of my favorite Final Fantasies per se.
Yeah, woo! Mine
So,
too.
I'm a 5 fan here.
oh wow, you don't see many of those.
Nope, I'm a rare duck.
You know what's
Now
So-
we're gonna start an
with
internet
Nick, I really liked
Final
Fun.
Fantasy.
But the idea is that basically all the characters in that game particularly will basically take any item of clothing, like things you buy in the shop, and they'll have abilities assigned to them apparently, and you can learn abilities just like that. I'm okay with a system like that, but apparently that is just crazy in general. So you have things like, I can understand relics being imbued with like magic powers, but like your basic t-shirt. Hey guys, I'm wearing a t-shirt, so now I can walk. Discuss?
Oh yeah, the running shoes to
I
run.
know how to cast Doom. Now I forgot how to cast Doom. Now I know how to cast Doom. There we go.
Well, it always depends, I guess, on the sort of explanation behind. So if we go really like, okay, wear the t-shirt, I know how to like run faster. It's always kind of odd, and I'll be frank, it's gonna probably fall under like it's magic, so it makes sense.
There's also a bunch of other
Of course.
games that do it another way. A good example of this, Ruby. They have this whole thing with, was it Cinder? I forget her name. Anyways, and she uses dust through her clothing where they actually have the magical element woven into the fabric. So you can do that with
Really?
basically any, yeah.
Is that how she does it? Because
That's
maybe
one
I've
of
seen.
her techniques. She has magic woven into her fabric, I guess, as a way to divert people from her actual powers. But you can use that in any medium. You can say, hey, you have this T-shirt, but we wove a magic spell through it. So it
Yeah.
acts as speed boost. It can cast fire. So it's the same thing. Imbuing items such as relics with magic abilities, that's perfectly fine. You can use that same logic and apply it to clothing.
Yeah, it's sort of the like rune logic of, so I put a rune on it, so it does this now.
Exactly.
The whole thing about like abilities through clothing, and kind of, I know it's not relevant. It kind of reminds me of Kill la Kill a little bit.
That's clothing that was alive.
Yeah.
That's clothing
Yeah.
that's-
It's not completely off base, but yeah, it's sort of edge of it.
it's almost in the same avenue there.
Oh yeah, it's sentient clothing, so it's clothing that has some magic. Well, I guess that has a magic woven into it. That magic happens to be, sentient life.
Magical clothing, I think, is perfectly plausible as a logical thing in video games.
Well, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, okay, I'll bring this into here, but like Power Rangers, for instance, they're
Mhm.
regular people, like teenagers or whatever, and then when they use their like device to like transform, and they all of a sudden have this costume, they're like super stronger than they're supposed to be. So
Well, that
Alex,
one, I think the
spandex.
explanation there is like that they're like cybernetically enhanced or something outfits. They're just super like thin because magical alien technology, I guess.
Yeah. Also exploring spandex too.
Yeah, well, it's like the exploding spandex is the whole thing of like, oh yeah, well, you know, it's not spandex, it's some super thin micro steel of some sort that protects and enhances them. No, you can freaking nanomachines that crap. Yeah, you can basically replace magic with nanomachines. Same thing. It's like, why does it do that? Because nanomachines. Shut up.
Or if you want to go full Power Rangers with this, you can say it's the power of the morphing grid that flows through the suit that gives them their enhanced strength, speed, and stamina.
Something or other like that.
And then over time, it just transfers over to their actual normal selves.
Giving them civilian powers.
Yeah, something or other like that.
Jumping
With
back to
attitude.
video games.
All right, so
Jumping back into, I guess RPGs are maybe the best option for a lot of these examples for clothing items in general, like Andrew was saying, that have like skills attached to them and whatnot. But there's other cases where it doesn't apply, I guess you could say. Like, I mean, they just have it, and it's not like a special skill. It's not a special, I don't know, requirement or whatever. They just have it in the game. That's it.
Yeah.
My favorite thing when it comes to video games and basically putting on clothing is that you need certain amount of points to be able to wear a hat. My favorite example was FF12, where you guys remember that, where you had the license board thing?
Yeah.
You had to actually unlock leather hat in order to figure out how to wear a leather hat, because the characters are kind of like, this goes on how?
So that's what you're like. Is the whole license board system was like, oh, you need to get that. And my first thought was like,
reminded me of my playthrough. Oh god.
oh, it's like how? Like, how is this friggin' metaphorical board gonna stop me from wearing?
It was like
anything?
double the amount of work you had to do in that game, though, too. Because when I was playing for my channel, basically I was like, oh my god, okay, they took the whole whole, I don't know, sphere grid system or whatever that you saw in 10, but then they made it doubled so that you had to unlock it, but then also learn the skills, and you had to like purchase them on top of that too. So there's
They wrecked it.
yeah,
They wrecked it.
We can do an entire episode on how much 12 sucks.
yeah.
well,
I
also
wouldn't know much about 12. I just like the just like its logo, but I haven't played 12. I kind of stopped after 10, and I'm like,
Honestly, you're kind of better off. There hasn't been any really good ones since 10 and 10.
I just stopped at 10, and I'm like, I'm done.
here's hoping for 15, which actually kind of takes it in the other direction in terms of like, you know, just clothing that the people are wearing in 15 actually look logical. Funny enough.
Don't they have like a contract with some kind of some kind of fashion designer where they get all their clothing from that brand? And that's apparently why you can't really do DLC costumes in that game, because they're under a specific contract with that group to use that clothing.
First I've heard of it.
Wait, are we talking about the whole FF13? I don't know what company it is there, but they did it recently. Where it was like,
hang on, wait.
which one was it?
Was it 13 where they had like Lightning dressing up in some kind of designer?
Yeah,
clothing?
exactly.
Yeah.
It was an actual legitimate
It was.
It was Louis Vuitton.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
It was the song.
The bags,
Vuitton.
though.
That was out of character.
Well, it sort of assumes her to be, you know, kind of like an actress playing the role of Lightning. So it's out of character, if you will. But you know, it's a character. It can be taken anywhere.
Anyways, as of what I said for 15, I may be wrong. I may have heard it from a wrong source. But considering the type of fashion design they're going for in that game, it's not something I would discredit right away.
So far, it looks like modern chic.
Exactly.
Which tell me it's not going to be very good armor, but it'll at least look nice.
Pretty much. Like,
Yeah, because they're totally going to transform into a freaking Gundam.
With
I
our
look
powers
forward to
combined, we formed the Megazord.
Damn it, Pam! You spoiled it for everyone.
Oh, spoilers.
So disappointed.
Okay, so let's look at different characters, I guess you could say, in different video games, like what kind of outfits they're wearing and what really bothers you about it that shouldn't really work in real life.
Should I start Googling someone right now?
I can start.
You can look at
okay.
anybody, like, seriously.
I have a good first target.
Oh,
I have a
go.
good one.
Go. I'm ready.
Bayonetta.
There
You
is
see?
nothing wrong with Bayonetta.
Okay, seriously, her outfit is nothing more than a symbol
This is
of her
a
hair.
multi-tiered examination. There's a multi-tiered examination in the essay here. So we'll begin by I'll begin by saying, okay, so we assume she chose her own outfit. For her, it's empowering. So that
Isn't it her hair?
Yeah.
It is. Well, at least
Magical
her hair
hair?
is the magical sort of conduit that creates it, which is more apparent in the first one where it flows directly down, and less in the second one where it seems to exist on its own.
Wow.
Then again, I've played the games. Umbra witches can basically control the length of their own hair, and sometimes they keep it short, sometimes they keep it long. So you see the other Umbra witch from Bayonetta 1 and the Bayonetta 2, she had the long hair. And yeah, it's basically their hair is their clothing, which they use to channel all the demonic summons that they use.
Mm-hmm.
And they call the abilities Wicked Weaves.
Yeah, which is
Nice.
yeah, funny. But yeah, no, if we properly sort of like look at it, on one end, it's not great armor. There's like no protection to it. It's
No,
just a
I
skin-tight
mean-
suit.
Well, especially in her back. I mean, where her like a good like maybe 70% of her back's exposed.
Oh yeah, it's open back, so that's
Yeah,
Probably
it's an
not
open
the
back.
best.
Yeah, I'm looking at the character sheet right now.
yeah. I'm also looking at her. Well, I'm specifically looking at her second game appearance because I'm quite familiar with her first game appearance. But like open back's probably not best because it leaves openings for slipping out, tearing, all that. But the reality is, a skin-tight suit is not necessarily bad for combat. Assuming that it's made of some kind of fabric that can move, that can fit with you, it's not for nothing that the Power Rangers were always putting skin-tight suits, because on top of looking right, being visually entertaining, it is, moldable and can move. If you look at modern exercise, where like skin tight's pretty much the new standard with them, Under Armour and the like.
Yeah.
So from that front, Bayonetta has some cachet. It works on that front.
And
Yeah,
from
you-
another perspective,
Mm-hmm.
Bayonetta is all magic. She is an Umbra witch. She has ridiculous strength. She was made by the same creators as Devil May Cry, so Lord knows she can probably take 5 knives to the face and survive. So
Lord knows she probably has.
Yeah. None of that. She can transform into a bunch of different animals, from panthers, snakes, crows, bats. I don't think armor and clothing mean anything to Bayonetta.
You can't really limit her, in other words, because of the fact that she has such an open magical, I guess, like she's made for magic, right? So if you compare it to something more like on a more realistic but non-realistic basis, I'm gonna just throw this character out there, but Lara Croft, Tomb Raider.
Okay, which one? Because her varies from cringeworthy to decent.
Okay, I'm gonna have to puff my chest out here for a minute. Lara Croft expert, because I've played the games since '96. Yeah, there's a lot to go on there. That's been a common trope topic in video games for a good 2 decades now.
But we're not going to touch on the trope aspect
so
here. We're just going to go into the clothing aspect. Because
Okay.
she's wearing, okay, like if you go to the really old games, she's wearing really like normal clothes and stuff like that. There's no leveling up system. There's nothing, like she's
All right. Well,
doing her action stuff, and there's nothing really protecting her. Really, it's like you if you get shot, you die.
but at the same time, like, in her case, we're living in the modern world. So if you want to be able to move around, you don't wear armor, because short of very, reasonably thick armor, Kevlar and the like, nothing's going to save you from dying once from a bullet. So,
Yeah. Compared to the new games that came out recently, there is a whole armor aspect, and it's kind of different.
well,
Yeah.
Really? Because from what I've seen in the new game, she just wears slightly more sensible clothing. Because I can understand in like warm environments, the short shorts might seem like a good idea, but short shorts up to the thigh, it's probably not good for any sort of like low-hanging branches, contact with like poisonous plants and like. Much as it sounds like in jungle environments, shorts would be the best idea. More often than not, long shorts or pants are better, considering you want to avoid.
Yeah, logically speaking, but in the actual game itself, though, you don't really. It doesn't have a real like. It doesn't have a point basically being there. It's just for what your character wants to look like. It doesn't really add anything. I mean, like you could dress her up in short shorts and she'll be in the middle of winter, and it wouldn't matter because of the fact that her character build is based on stats. It's not based on what like.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Well, there's also the crafting aspect of the game too. I mean.
Yeah.
I mean that crafts her armor, her pickaxe and bow and whatnot.
Yeah.
All right. Like if you want to separate the real world functionality of it, like yes, okay, it has no like effect on the actual like gameplay really. So yeah, sure, she could wear pretty much whatever she wants. But personally, I'm still going with the whole, wearing short shorts in like exploration scenarios is less of a good idea than it sounds.
Oh, it's actually just a terrible idea in general, period.
Like, I know I've gone like rock climbing and the like, and I've gone to hiking, and man, was I happy so often that I was wearing long pants, those like hundreds of times that you catch a bad rock and it would have like scraped open your knee, or a branch whips and hits your thigh and you're like, okay, I was wearing some decent jeans, okay, I got through that. Like, and you're like, oh, well, if my leg had been exposed, ooh, that would have bled. That would have bled a lot.
Yeah.
You know what type of suits have always annoyed me in video games that make absolutely no real world sense?
Sure.
Mobile suits.
Okay.
Boy.
Okay,
The
whoa.
weight of those things would collapse any street they walk on.
Wait, whoa. Okay, first, when we're talking mobile suits, we need to be specific. Mobile suit as in what? As in, like...
Giant robots.
That's a whole other topic. Let's not get into
Well, the type of suit, right?
Why don't we just downscale that?
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, a whole other topic.
Very much.
That is literally a vehicle. However, if you want to go, let's say, sci-fi armor, that's a viable topic.
Let's say an exosuit.
How do they walk around in that stuff? It looks so over cumbersome. It covers them up completely. How do they even turn?
Well, that's the thing. It depends on which ones we're talking about. If you want to dissect like the most, I guess, stereotypical, most known, the Mjolnir armor, the Halo armor, if you will.
Yeah.
Like that one is actually reasonably well designed. Less so in 1 because it was still very stylized, but by the time they got to 2, the actual design of it is actually pretty sensible. You notice that there are plates. They cover the areas that are non-flexible, so like the arms, the forearms, the thighs, and like the chest, with leaving areas for a more flexible weave in the joints. It's actually reasonably sensibly made, most of the Mjolnir's armor. I do say most, because some of them has had some weirdness going on, but like I find as an example of reasonably designed armor, assuming that the actual like mechanics of it work, of course.
Oh yeah, especially for a lot of the newer sci-fi series, they really take the time to explain how the armors work, how they all work together, the purpose, the power source. Heck, the armors in Mass Effect as well. There's a whole essay on that. But in general, then you have older series and older armors, which are just so huge for the sake of being huge.
Sure.
Speaking of older armor, though, if we're going back to like let's just say medieval armor and whatnot, I just have to bring this up because it's so it really breaks physics, right? So I mean, I'm talking about the long, big, bulky armor that like I did armor, right? And it's huge and it goes past like your waist and down a little bit further towards like your knees essentially, and you can't really walk in it and whatnot. But like when you're trying to ride a horse in a video game, there is no way in hell you're gonna sit on that.
Oh yeah, that's like the most classic error I find in video games. Like they put what you'd call infantry armor on people on horses. And I say infantry armor because they have nothing to sort of like allow their legs to split, like the chest plate and like the skirt plate go down and everything. Like as soon as you're going to be riding a horse, your armor is going to have a little space or at least a little opening where it can come up so you can, like.
It's definitely going to be flipping in the game, though. Like, for sure I'm going to post pictures probably about that, but it's just, it's a ridiculous feature, actually.
Okay, I want to throw in a little bit of Metal Gear into this.
Really?
Sneaking suits. What do you think about those?
They work.
Yeah, because they're skin tight. They have some sort of armor to them.
Well, it depends. Like, if we're talking about the sneaky suit, like, if we're talking about the very classic, let's go back, Metal Gear Solid 1. Which technically...
I'd say Snake Eater. Well, in terms of the timeline.
Snake Eater is a whole other thing. It's not a sneaking suit. He's wearing fatigues.
Okay.
He's wearing fatigues and a harness. But no, like, just Metal Gear Solid 1, sneaking suit.
Yeah.
Basically what it is a skin-tight suit. It's not armor by many standards. Possibly it might have Kevlar woven into the vital areas, which would still be flexible. But like even by how easy it is to kill you, it's clear it's not much armor. But the point is, in Metal Gear, you're not supposed to be seen. You're not Master Chief. You're not gonna usually take on the entire base, guns blazing. So the point is, it's not really armor. It's comfortable, slim sneaking gear. And even then, if you look, he actually does wear a harness, some kind of a carrier with pouches and everything, because you need to put your crap somewhere. So at least that much, they have at least that logic that many other games lack. So where do I put this flashlight? Apparently, up my behind, because I have no pockets.
So true. It's the invisible bag of infinite space.
They're not. It's their behinds, their asses, clearly.
Did we cover smart armor or like cybernetic armor? I'm not sure.
Well, we kind of cover that with the Mjolnir because that's what it is.
Right.
Like, that's the whole.
You just got me thinking actually about Resident Evil and the whole accessories of carrying them in the case, the suitcase.
The trunk.
Oh yeah, like.
How big is this bloody suitcase to be carried? And like, how many items could you actually hold in this? Like, logically speaking, where is he carrying that shit? Is he carrying it on his back, or is he carrying like an invisible like?
He's not. He's just not. Especially when you come to Resident Evil 4, he's just not.
It's the Link conundrum. You know how Link has like
with a bunch
so
of
much stuff, and how's he able to carry it? Felix is not bag and all that.
He'd be like the cabbage guy from freaking Avatar. He's got like his herbs in a freaking cart or something, carrying him behind him.
No.
I think Link has a magic bag where everything shrinks when it goes inside, so that's how he's able to carry all that equipment.
Like pretty much all the characters in video games.
Yeah,
pull out my giant freaking knife.
Mainly, I think I've seen actually an artist rendering of what if Link had to have a cart, and yep, it was an entire cart to carry all that crap.
All of this shit, yeah.
Friggin' Bigoron sword, for God's sake.
Oh yeah.
Where does he keep that?
You don't want to know.
Oi.
All right. So let's get to something that's just kind of aesthetically there and just kind of weird is the amount of zippers all the Kingdom Hearts characters have on all their clothing.
Yeah.
So many.
Somebody has a zipper fetish.
I got something to follow up with this one once we're done, but go on.
I have one thing to say before Andrew, you go first, sorry.
It's because it's like the zippers don't really even lead to pockets. It just feels like zippers to have for the sake of having zippers. And it never made sense to me. And it's just like, I tried cosplaying Goofy from Kingdom Hearts, and it's just like, I guess I just need lots of zippers. Okay, zipper on my pants. That doesn't even seem like a logical place for a zipper. Why would I put a zipper on the leg? Not the other logical place.
From
You
my
know what I mean.
understanding, from what I've heard about all the zippers in Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts, it came at a time where the developer was like, "Oh, you're all so lazy to do your design. I'm just putting zippers everywhere to give you something to
Oh
do."
boy.
Because they're so
Like-
difficult to design 3D wide, especially at that time. He just put them on there to like give everyone something to do or just to mess with them.
Well, yeah. For example, look at Lulu and her
Belts.
belts on her.
The belt dress. Oh boy.
Like, how many belts do you have?
I have
Like
70.
30.
What does she do with them?
These zippers are essentially some sick creators' way of trolling the art team.
Okay.
Jeez.
Staying on the whole zippers thing, there's one thing that really bugs me. This is another design trope. Bandages. I'll give you an example. In the recent Sonic Boom or whatever, everyone has like some sort of bandages on their arms, or their legs. Even the 2012 Ninja Turtles have that. I'm like, all of a sudden these guys became Muay Thai MMA fighters? The hell?
Well, you know.
Are you sure they're not sweatbands instead of like?
No, I know he's talking about the art
It's
bandages,
something
but
like armbands or bandages or
Yeah.
like linen wrappings or something. And that kind of, and some of that even trickles back into Kingdom Hearts. I just did a Google image search, and I'm looking at Cloud, and his sword is all covered in bandages.
Oh yeah, that was a weird
yeah.
design.
Yeah. Okay. So right now it's bandages. Go. Feel free.
Okay, well, if I've given my 2 cents on bandages, like there's a good use of bandages and there's a less good use of bandages, because bandages, which is in this case, very generic kind of way of stating any strip of cloth wound around the body, because we don't even know if they're actual bandages. You know, you sort of derogatorily say like, what are they, MMA fighters or Muay Thai artists? But like, it can be useful to have a linen wrap for your sweat and the like. And I know it's very often presented on women, but you also had that on certain people with clothing, wraps around the chest.
Right.
Like, especially for women in animation, you see that sometimes to good effect. You have some moments where it's like, that shouldn't work. But like,
Okay.
basically,
But what's the purpose of having that? I don't understand. Is it just a design choice, or is it actually adding to the game experience?
Well,
I think like from a design point, first of all, I actually think they kind of look cool. I like some bandages on arms and such, but I can see like how they would add a bit of a extra security or layering on your fists. I could be wrong, but that's just like the logic you get from looking at it, but that's like could be completely wrong.
well, it's the boxing tape thing. If you look at any
or boxing
boxer who has gloves, it's the whole boxing tape. And if you're doing any sort of combat art, we're talking about modern sport, like their hands are bandaged nice and precisely to keep them solid for like punching.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that you also have them in weightlifting, from what I understand. People who bandage themselves up when lifting heavy weights. Not
Okay,
to
so I guess
scratch
it
their
makes more
skin.
sense for like the fighter type video game characters, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. There are some valid applications.
So if you look like Street Fighter or whatever, like they're gonna definitely have those bandages on their arms and stuff.
Well, the characters like Ryu, Ken, those are characters.
Mhm.
But going back to the whole Sonic Boom redesign, I'm looking at the characters right now. I think the only character who's valid to use such bandages is Knuckles, because they made him taller compared to the other people. He made him look buffer. He looks like a brawler. He has arm bandages all over his
Arms.
his arms, brass knuckles, and all that. But Sonic has like bandages on his gloves and on his shoes, and Tails only has it on his shoes. So I think out of all of them, using bandages as a redesign, it only makes good sense to use it on Knuckles.
Yeah.
It was sort of, and even then, if you look at Knuckles, there's like bandages on his shoe and stuff. It's a weird design decision because bandages do not necessarily make cool or make interesting.
Yeah.
things.
Also, he has them on his lower legs too. So I'd say like I said, just makes more sense for Knuckles.
It's
Okay,
it's not a choice.
Moving back to Andrew's topic about Kingdom Hearts characters, though, because Fox, you mentioned shoes, and I'm just like appalled by how huge the characters' feet size or shoe size are.
They're trying to play the Disney card, like to the max.
It looks like clown shoes there. It's just like.
Oh yeah.
Well, wasn't Sora supposed to originally be actually Mickey Mouse, and then they kind of just made an original character that was between Mickey Mouse and a Disney character, hence why Sora has huge feet.
Yeah, but it's got like a bubble.
It's a Disney character. That's what they're doing.
Around.
It's basically your atypical Mickey Mouse shoe.
Like, how does he run? How does he walk in such huge feet? I would be tripping over myself.
I don't know. Ask Sideshow Bob.
It's a good point.
Well, even he had difficult with that.
Yeah, no, seriously though. Like, how did you do that, Andrew?
I'm trying to think. I'm like, I never even thought about the shoes. It kind of always just was there, and now that you bring it up, I'm like, wow, those shoes are ridiculous. Just super ridiculous.
I mean, you're talking about the zippers, and I'm like thinking right about the shoes. I'm like, how big are the shoes? But then, I don't know. They always have to make something big on a character, right? So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, it's just so disproportionate. I mean, like, and it's weird. It's like everyone's toes just get like ridiculously huge at the end. So everyone has like these really flat feet, and then like their toes are just like balls. They're just like, whoa, okay, that was some weird evolutionary trick you guys went on there.
But that's like, it's the classic thing that's evolved from like old school Disney cartoons to current day. Just like, it's one of those tropes that like, it just becomes so iconic for the characters they can't let it go. But yeah, when you put that into a video game, it's like, how are they walking? But then again, isn't that a lot of different aesthetic choices in video games? What was that game that came out a few years ago and it was like in the news because of how like overtly sexual all their characters were? Like you had like boobs.
Dragon's Crown.
Dragon's Crown. There you go. All
Dragon's
the characters were like ridiculously designed. You're like, how do they walk?
Oh, that thing.
Well,
that one.
Like that one, it doesn't even stop at the clothes. Like the bodies are so characterized. It's like intense. Like that one is like a multi-topic sort of thing because like the bodies are intense. The friggin' like fighter, his chest is 3 times as wide as his like waist. It's just like how, and then the clothing, like the freaking bikini Amazon and like the witch who clearly her dress would not hold her bust.
I saw
There's
a
no way you
photo.
would fight like that without something popping out.
I saw a photo of that bikini Amazon, and I'm like, wow, which one's a boob and which one's a muscle? It was like.
But then again, that's an example of a highly stylized, when they're specifically made to look a certain way, like Kingdom Hearts characters looking like Disney characters. That's the style, that's the aesthetic they're going for. It's not supposed to be logical. It's not supposed to play in a realm of logic at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also thinking about different types of items that you also find in video games. Like I'm also going back to Final Fantasy again with certain items that like, okay, they use Phoenix Down in order to revive people. And I'm trying to like, I mean, it's a great concept, right, and stuff like that, but then there's like, it's a feather from an animal or a phoenix or whatever, like, just, I don't know, logically speaking, that wouldn't exist in real life. But then if you compare it to other games, you also have like revival potions and whatnot, and there's just some kind of weird, I guess, thought process that goes behind certain items that you can use or whatever like that.
To be fair, Phoenix Downs don't even make sense within the context of their own video games. Now, somebody dies in a battle, Phoenix Down. Somebody dies in a cutscene, too bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. It's true, and I'm looking at Crisis Core right now because I'm still upset about that.
No.
It's like, Zach, you play him the whole game, and then you get to the end, and he magically dies. Spoilers!
Exactly. Well, video game items have no logic outside of a battle.
Well,
Andrew.
well, it's just like just in general the whole especially in RPGs are just like notorious for this. You think that the world would be more populated, or there'd just be that many more people in it? Because theoretically, you live in a world where death shouldn't exist based on these items existing. Period. Even if some of them are just lore, but the fact that you can buy a Phoenix Down or a revival potion in any random shop means that everyone should live forever. Essentially, be immortal.
Well, I can sort of counter argument to that. Like, if that were true, then why is there such a thing as a game over? Because it assumes that perhaps you weren't able to put out the Phoenix Down, or you weren't remotely strong enough, survived long enough to use the Phoenix Down. So just having these items isn't 100%. There is no more death situation. So I don't know about you, but I'm thinking back to Final Fantasy X, which is one of my favorite, and I've gone with Phoenix Downs and auto revives, and I have died. I have
exactly.
murdered.
You kill your character off, and you have 10 billion of this one item that can revive your guy.
It all depends if you can use it. It's always if you can use it.
You know what I love about Phoenix Downs and Final Fantasy X? They kill the undead.
That's hilarious. The Everett Altana phenomenon. The one boss are okay, so this is going to be a tough boss battle. What am I going to do? I'm going to use 3 revival items. That's it, and you're just like, what? Okay.
Oh, man.
Sure.
But even so, and just in general, a lot of these items in games, there's items specifically made for in combat and don't work outside of the story's purposes.
Yeah, that's I've always found that funny. It's why can I only use this healing item in combat? How?
I feel like the devs are trolling us when they do that.
There was one troll that I faced once. I think it was in Castlevania 64. Where I had to walk very slowly with a vial of nitrogen to blow up a wall, and this was the.
I hope you mean nitroglycerin, not nitrogen.
The nitroglycerin, yeah.
That would make some actual sense. Because nitrogen, I'd be like, so you can freeze the wall. That might work, but you don't necessarily have to carry it so nicely. But nitroglycerin,
no, but seriously, I had my N64 controller. And I was like that for a whole hour, not to bump into anything.
I just throw it.
But at the same time, that's a property of actual real life nitroglycerin. It's very sensitive to movement. So much so that back in the day when they used to carry around in carts, you'd hit a bumpy road, that might be the end of your cart.
It's like Crash Bandicoot, for instance.
I barely remember Crash Bandicoot. I did not play that.
Explosives everywhere. We're trying to jump over things, and if you just jiggled it, it would explode.
Boom. Another set of items is that, let's say you get yourself a weapon. It could be in an RPG, action game, whatever, and it's so low. It's pretty much like a useless weapon. But if you start enhancing it, it becomes the most powerful weapon in the game.
Well, okay, that one I think I can add some actual logic to that, in the sense that I can actually break that down. Because as I said at the beginning, I'm currently an aspiring blacksmith. It's something I'm working on currently. And the reality is, when you take something out of metal, I'm gonna go with steel because sure, there's mithril and star metal and stuff, and we don't know how they work. But if we assume real life metals, steel, the one we will often use for weapons, armors, and the thing is, to get steel to work for a weapon, once you've actually got it generally forged out, you have to go through a process of hardening it. It's a process usually of heating and quenching it. And what that does is it, long story short, it makes the lattices in the metal realign properly, makes it stronger. So the thing is, once it's hardened, you can't really heat it up and reforge it again. So I've always, ever since I've come to learn this, I found it hilarious, the whole, as you were saying, Nick, the logic of, so I have this level 1 weapon.
Yeah.
It's sucky as shit. But
Okay.
if I reforge it 90 times, it'll be good. The
Well,
reality
it's like me playing Dark Souls right now. It's like, how do you reforge something to make it stronger?
you can't really. You just kind of make a new one. In real life, at least.
You know, going back to healing items, you know, it's the kind of healing item that's always like put me off and makes no sense.
Hmm?
The food you find in the wild. Like, what is it, in Castlevania, you find a turkey leg in the wall?
Oh my.
How long has that been there?
Metal Gear Solid 3.
I found a turkey.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid. Yeah. No, go on.
My favorite example of this is, who here has seen this live-action movie called Press Start?
Oh, I have.
Nope.
Not me.
It's
Oh,
really
it's been
good.
ages.
It's kind of like an indie film. It's putting video game characters in a real-world scenario. It's ridiculous. At one point, the main character, he's injured, and there's a beeping sound going on. He's like, what is that sound? Sounds like you're low on health. And they find a dirty chicken leg on the ground, and he's like, here, eat this. I'm not going to eat that. He eats the chicken leg. It's disgusting, and then it's like, wow, I feel better.
Okay, let me steer that a little bit. In Metal Gear Solid 3, you have the ability to actually hunt wildlife, get fruit off trees.
That game just takes that to the extreme. Like,
Really?
you can eat everything. So much
Yes.
that there's a joke that, like, and I've seen it drawn out really nicely, of like, you know what? The only weapon you need is the fork. Eat all your enemies. Because there's a fork weapon that if you attack an animal that you can eat, it automatically eats it. So, like, you're like, okay, screw this, I don't need to shoot enemies. Eat the enemies. Devour them all.
It's a wonder how the actual characters eat in those games. They eat so much food, and yet they're like the same size when they come after their cutscene or whatever. So if you look at the Tails characters,
Wow.
they always have like the cooking in that actual game. So it's just like, oh my gosh, the amount of times that I play characters.
Not so much in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Oh,
This-
the fat. Oh,
The
you
fat
get
and
so
muscle, yeah.
Oh yeah, but that's like the one that actually takes into account that you're eating a gratuitous amount of calories without burning it off. Though you can burn it off, which is also kind of a cool thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like going to the gym, walking, running, biking.
I remember they did that in Fallout 2 and 3. There were certain food items that did increase your health but added weight. So if you kept using these types of items, your character would get fatter and fatter and fatter.
Well,
And
that
when
makes sense though. Like,
Yeah, but then the way you lose weight is by eating celery and carrots.
no. Okay. Well, they kind of had to balance it out, I guess.
Yeah, that's sort of like we have to design something, but yeah, that's kind of odd. And the reality is, like, if you'd have to eat a gratuitous amount of that stuff for it to actually add weight, even if it's something fattening. If we assume these kinds of video games characters are the kind of lives they lead, like, you would probably burn off a lot of those calories. Like, that's the thing with Fallout. You go, like, only if you're, like, in a settlement and have access to food regularly would you really be, counting calories. If you're traveling the wastes, you want to eat anything, like, you can find, because you have no idea when your next meal is. No idea.
Screw the radiation, right?
Yeah.
And radiation. Let's not even get started. So like that's the thing with like survival scenarios. Like in survival scenarios, you pretty much eat when you can find food, and if at all possible, you carry it with you.
This brings up my next point here, and that's the logic of dropped items in games too. So when you're killing an enemy
You mean
and
what
they
logic?
drop something, it's like, I feel bad whenever I play shooter games, right? Because I'm always robbing some poor guy that I just killed on the ground. I'm just like, oh, that's it. He's got all these bullets. He's got all these healing items. Oh, look at that. He's got a jacket I can take. Cool.
Shooter games are like the only games I don't feel bad. Like as of yesterday, I've been playing The Division by Ubisoft.
Oh,
Which is
that's...
new. It's cool. I'm playing on a PC. Anyways, and like I shot a guy up and it fell around, and like I went over, took his bullets, took his coat because it was a nice coat, and then sorry, my first thought was not, oh poor guy. My first thought was, his mistake for shooting me. He won't need it anymore. Mine now.
You're just wondering how much crap he was carrying on him in the first place for him to drop it, you know?
A game I could think of A game I can think of right off the bat when it comes to like gobbling up so many items. BioShock, any one of the BioShock films.
Oh, the amount of
BioShock
injection
games.
into your veins. Oh, your poor veins after injecting yourself every 2 minutes.
So many plasmids and chips and cola and.
Well,
Oh
if
my
you
God.
look at Diablo even too, I'm mentioning this because when you kill a boss, it's like, oh my god, money spilling out everywhere.
Oh yeah, like, and it literally like it doesn't just kind of drop on the ground. No, it explodes outwards all over the place.
Lootings of rainbows.
Oh
and
my god, no, that would be in Borderlands.
Oh,
Whenever you beat a boss, it literally rains loot and guns.
and you're like, where did it come from? It wasn't even a guy carrying a gun. It
It was
was
probably
some wild
Buckstein.
creature. It was it was a freaking like
The gods of weaponry.
the gods of weaponry like put a gun inside this skag's stomach.
Yeah.
And
So-
I guess skags
My
are sort of
favorite-
not a great example because they
Yeah.
eat everything. But even like you blow a guy up who all he had was like these knives, and like suddenly he craps out a shotgun. You're like, what? Where did that come from?
You keep farming like some kind of psychotic doctor, and then eventually he drops an infinity pistol, which never runs out of ammo.
Yeah, and you're just like, if he had this, why was he not using this? Where did this come from?
And then there's this other gun in Borderlands that shoots swords.
Yeah, that's from Borderlands 2, the medieval.
Skeletor or Scalabastard, something like that.
Yeah, Scalabastard, I think it was.
But
Another-
just to finish on one thing about looting is I'm gonna go back to press start for a second. One of my favorite jokes about that is they kill a few monsters and then they go to loot the bodies. It's like, what are you doing? I'm searching them for money. Why would monsters carry money on them?
Like, why?
They have
Why
to
would
have
monsters
currency.
carry human currency on them?
Is it too late to go back to weapons, or we're done with that now?
No, I'd
It's
say
an open
Okay.
floor. You can talk about
Okay,
whatever.
just to venture back into weapons a little bit, just weapons of a more mature standing, like the ones used in Saints Row the Third and in San Andreas.
You're talking about the giant dildos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the reality is, they're valid weapons. Think what you want about what they look like and what
Yeah,
they
you can bitch
actually
slap somebody in
are.
the face with that. So
Like they're basically flexible like maces. If the material is
You need like something solid in the middle.
not necessarily, otherwise no one would have ever used the flail, which has a chain. It's odd to use. I wouldn't say it's the greatest weapon because of course one that's and I'm gonna make the joke, one that's stiff would work better. But yes, you could beat the crap out of someone with a giant dildo.
Mm-hmm.
Logically, theoretically, physically,
Herbert,
it
we've
works.
said this before. We can pretty much make anything into a weapon, right? So
Oh yeah, like this computer screen I'm staring at is a viable weapon if I decided to. But yeah, it's just a very sort of like silly joke weapon, to have a giant dildo. So yeah, it's not a weapon choice. It could actually work though. Like having a broom as a weapon. Not the greatest, but you can kill a man with a broom if you want hard enough.
So do you guys have any other examples aside from that there that we can add to this?
Any odd weapons and such?
Yeah.
Well, much as I love a lot of them, like Ruby is full of weapons that I'm like, those would not work.
It's one thing I've always wondered about Ruby. Are they powered by gunpowder or by dust, their weapons?
Well, that's
is
what
the
we
launching mechanism?
that's what we don't know because we don't know the actual like firm uses of dust. You could be both, and as far as that's concerned, it doesn't really change. I would go with dust because it seems like the effects can be made elemental, and that seems to be a trait of dust. But like what I'm mostly sort of referring to is like take for example Ruby's weapon, the big sniper scythe, which I love.
Mhm.
Don't get me wrong, it's really cool, and Pamex did a really good Ruby. But the point is, if you have this like long-barreled, high-powered sniper rifle with a high caliber, you have a barrel that extends the reality is that's just making really big weaknesses in the barrel. And by the amount of munitions she fires, and by the recoil, the power of munitions she fires, oh, that thing would have exploded so many times.
Well, never mind that, just the folding process. I can't believe people actually figured that out.
Oh my god, oh.
But even in story, when they talk about her scythe, they all say how it's a very complex design, and it was her Uncle Crow who helped her design it.
Yeah, he helped design something that, like, taking into account real-world materials would not work, because it would blow the crap up after the first shot. Because you can't make an extending barrel that holds together with the gases of, like, high-caliber weapons.
Mm-hmm.
I was low on health. I went for ice cream.
Yeah, I noticed. But yeah, like, Ruby is rife with weapons that are weird, like, that do weird things they should not be able to do. The Yang gauntlets, like, that clearly defy the laws of conservation of mass, because they go from, like, oh, well, there's just this one, and there's that thing, and boom.
To be fair, she only has the one now.
Spoilers!
I still haven't seen it yet, Peter. God.
I was avoiding it because spoilers.
Hey,
Oh, yeah.
wouldn't be the first time you spoiled something.
I
Yeah.
have no idea what I did.
What?
Go home, Peter.
Here it is.
Metaphorically, go home.
Extreme.
Then eat your ice cream and
God.
stop spoiling.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it's like any sort of weird transforming weapon. So often, then, like, you get these cases where they don't work. They just can't hold up like that. It's like the logic of a folding knife. Like, folding knife is great and all for just kind of, using it and having a compact thing. But as soon as any sort of pressure would be applied to it, it has a big weakness, that part where it folds.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why no one ever recommends using a folding knife for combat unless you absolutely have to. So it's like all these weapons, Ruby is guilty of a lot of them. I'm trying to think of other things. Like, a lot of sci-fi RPGs have these transforming weapons. You're just putting weaknesses in your weapon design. Why?
Because it looks cooler.
While
It
not a
looks
transforming
cooler,
weapon,
sure, but come on.
while not a transforming weapon, a weapon that makes no sense design-wise, the Gunblade.
No, that's
Oh,
just
boy.
horrible. Like, that goes right back to the someone doesn't understand how, guns work. Because the whole logic of the Gunblade is you have a blank in a revolver mechanism, and you shoot it, and it makes the blade vibrate? And it's like, yeah, it also shatters the barrel eventually, and, like, sends shocks up the poor person who's holding his arm so bad that he'll break his wrist if he's lucky after
I
the
never
first
even
time.
understood that, though, when I was playing Final Fantasy VIII. Like, just the gunblade concept. Like, how does it even work? Like, is it supposed to be shooting something? Or, like...
No, like, literally the logic is that the blade is supposed to, and this is why the programmer works that way, is the game logic is that when you hit with it, that's when you trigger the gun mechanism, and it makes the blade vibrate and, like, make a deeper cut, or, like, sort of vibrate into a deeper wound. But, like, the actual level of application of would that really be worth it? Would it work? It's pretty much a no and a no.
Not to mention fact, just the handle itself, it's pretty unwieldy from what I understand.
It's not bad, I would
One
say.
thing that always
a grip
got
on
me.
it, but, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
One thing that always got me about the Gunblade is how exactly do you hold it? I mean, is it like I don't know? Is it something like this where you have a handle and then you put your finger around the trigger like that?
Well, it's like you're holding a gun, but instead you're holding a sword gun.
Yeah, but is it something that you can wield two-handed?
It's like you're holding a gun sideways, essentially.
Well, you can wield it two-handed.
Yeah.
The handle itself, considering they were trying to bridge the two things, like, both a sword and a gun, is pretty reasonably designed. But, it's not the best. Like, there are examples of handles on blades that curves forward. That's a thing, and, it's a certain grip, and it, for some people it works, for some people it doesn't. You know?
It's not your typical pistol grip. It's as if someone took, like, you know how you have a gun and the pistol's kind of curved like that. It's as if someone bent it a good 40 degrees or something.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's if I like take away from all the other bits that doesn't work, the actual grip shape, it left the pistol grip and looks more like a rifle grip, where the rifle becomes the buttstock.
There is no buttstock on. There's nothing to rest your against.
Oh yeah,
but
no,
it's almost similar to the same construction. It's almost in the same
oh
design.
yes, but like basically what you're talking about is the handle. Would the handle work? And I would say in that sense yes, because basically it's pretty much the same shape of handle as you'd have on let's say a shotgun with the stocks removed.
Well, if you look at the sword that Lightning carries, though, in FF13, it's kind of the same ordeal. Although hers folds, though, so...
Yeah, I remember that sword. I helped make that sword.
Yes, you did.
But and you see that one, the sword handle's kind of uselessly fancy with like little knobs and stuff, but at its base, it works. It has a slight curve, which is good for holding in the hand. The curve is kind of odd. I wouldn't design my own blade that way. But you see, like it looks like it would work. I pulled up a photo just to see, and yeah, no, you see that one in terms of, I guess, ergonomics of it, without being the greatest, it at least comes from a logical place. And then the tilt for when it becomes the gun is, decent. It's sort of a decent cant where you kind of get it to work.
Okay. Great. So I guess we have maybe 10 more minutes left of discussion. So if anybody else has anything to add, feel free.
I'm trying to think what's been covered and what hasn't.
We've pretty much covered a lot of different things. So
we went all over the place. All over the place.
You know, a game works surprisingly well logically, and this might be my own bias talking here. Pokemon, funny enough. You wouldn't think about it, but a lot of logic works in that.
It depends on what you mean by what works logically. Because there's a lot of conservation of mass that's ignored in Pokemon. How does Rock Slide work? I'm in the middle of the ocean.
There's also the fact of how does their economy work?
No, that let's not even go there.
Well, the economy does make sense when you think about it.
The economy can work, but
basically there's also the fact that certain Pokemon don't know certain moves and they should know them. Like, was it Lapras didn't know how to surf or something? Like, and
Lapras
then like
cannot surf.
you look at Pikachu and Pikachu can surf, and like you're like, what? I can't ride this guy. And
or like, there's always, this is my favorite logic of like, okay, you have a boulder. You require a rock smash to get out of get through the boulder. And I'm just like, well, my Gyarados knows Hyper Beam, which is like this all-destroying, all-encompassing beam of doom. Can't that work? Why do I need cut? I have a freaking Scyther. No matter what he does, he'll cut it.
It's like he's just like looking at his scythe like, I don't know how to use these things.
I catch a little bush on fire.
Yeah, exactly. Like, can I not flamethrower it? Can I not, I don't know, solar beam the crap out of it?
Can I just not fly to go over it?
Yeah, like, can I just kind of not go around it?
No.
Like, so, I think the words, a game that makes decent logical sense and naming Pokemon is perhaps kind of a stretch.
I was talking about clothing, by the way, and weapons. Gosh, relax.
Well, weapons. What weapons?
The Pokemon, obviously.
That's disrespectful. They're living beings, not weapons.
I think he means
they're evolved animals.
Well, yes. In terms of clothing, it's because they wear clothing. They wear,
And the Hammerspace backpack that can hold a foldable bike.
Well, once they made it foldable, it kind of worked. But it was when it was not foldable that you're like, where did it go? But, foldable bikes that fit in or on backpacks do exist.
No, that I know. But to be able to fit in your backpack on top of everything else?
It doesn't have to fit in. It just has to fit on.
But here's the thing. Back in the old original game, you had a limit to your backpack, how many items you can carry. But as later generations came, you had no limit, and then you had different pockets for different compartments. So you had like a Pokeball compartment, a TM compartment, a general item
I'm
compartment.
carrying 99 Ultra Balls in a
Pretty
giant
much.
cart behind me.
Exactly, all back there with your 2 bicycles.
Well, technically, you can stack with Pokeballs, right? Because if you're going to catch a Pokemon with it, why don't you just catch each and every single Pokeball? Then it's like that whole doll that effect.
The Russian doll.
Yeah, the Russian doll effect.
Like,
Or
Ball inside of a
Inception.
ball, inside of a ball, inside of a ball.
Or maybe the backpack is just one type of Pokeball. And just
I
guess.
within there.
in that sense, yeah, there's some logic to be said. Like, if they invented Pokeballs that could shrink, a friggin' Dragonite down to like this small, because the Pokeballs can obviously shrink, then maybe they've invented a backpack where you can sort of store things out and they become light when you put them in.
Did they ever actually explain like the concept of a Pokeball? Like how it like
No.
how are how are the Pokemon living in there?
Not
It's
really, no.
it's like I've seen so many hypothetical ways as to how can they live in there, like from a 5-star penthouse to like I don't know. Just
Yeah, I would have thought it was
near-
something from I Dream of Genie or whatever when she gets into the bottle.
Yeah, something like that.
Here's the thing. This may be heresy to a lot of hardcore Pokemon fans.
Uh-oh.
But the best way that makes sense when it comes to the Pokeball is to think of them as Digimon.
You know what's funny? I
Oh,
was
yeah.
thinking the exact same thing. I was thinking the exact same thing.
It's okay. I will accept this because Digimon is superior to Pokemon in my opinion, and I don't care who I insult by saying this.
Because
Look at
Not anyone in this
We're on the same page.
what do you do with your Pokemon when you're not using them? You store them in a PC that's specifically linked to your account. How do
I
you
was gonna-
trace Pokemon? Through online Wi-Fi.
Maybe
Well, I was
they're in the
gonna say,
same
you
world.
digitize them.
Maybe they are.
There you go.
See, logic.
There's
Works.
some
I
logic.
think
I'll give it that. There's some logic, but that's by
Oh my
ignoring
god,
a
I'm like
lot of
making this like
non-logic.
huge fan theory now. Oh god, I'm fusing all animes together.
Digimon are
reality is-
actually Pokemon and
Because
vice
I'm
versa.
also watching God Hack Sign too at the same time, and I'm like, okay, if
Oh,
they
you
could
poor
do
soul.
that, then it could like intertwine with Pokemon and Digimon.
Wait, here's a good fan theory. What
I'm
if
going off
Pokemon,
topic.
what if Pokemon is the future of Digimon? Where the digital world and real world have completely merged and the Digimon are just now like very rudimentary in intelligence.
Then that's a tragedy because the designs of
why you need
Digimon are
logic.
much more interesting. They're cooler, so that's a tragedy, is what it is. I don't like that theory.
They're base programs now.
This is a tragedy. Don't say that.
This is why we need logic in video games though, because of the fact that it spawns so many fan theories, and then you get like people having like conspiracy talks about certain stuff online, and then finally when they ask the creators, and the creators are just like,
The fuck are you talking about?
they're like, did we put that in there? Like,
One of my favorite
and then
theories
we'll just
going,
agree with them, saying, yes, okay, we did this on purpose.
one of my favorite theories going around there right now is that the Link in Majora's Mask is actually dead and in purgatory.
Oh yeah, I heard about that one.
Fan theories.
Jeez. That's
There
another
was-
topic that we could totally go through next time.
Oh, who's the person who's got the frickin' phone going?
Oh, sorry, that's me. My bad.
Ah, come
Oh.
on. Disappointment.
All right, I guess it's a time to close, anyways. So
Just
nobody
we
else
went
had
all over the
anything to say?
place.
Are we good?
I am sorry. I'm still hooked up to a landline. You can't.
Wait, what is this landline you speak of?
Okay. Let's not get into this. Let's not.
You're not that young.
I'll close this and we
Older
can
than most of us here.
talk about this
All
afterwards.
right.
Anyways,
Yeah,
thank you guys for joining us for this episode of Rage Topics. Again, my name is Ice Valkyrie, and we are joined here by, of course, our wonderful friends that you can see down the side below. So we have Andrew, we have Bert, we have Peter, and we have Fox that joined us today. So, yeah.
I just learned Doom again.
Later, folks.
I forgot.
You guys.
Stay for